An absolutely rubbish day, written and illustrated by Grade 1. As the Northside students arrived at school one Friday, they noticed that the teachers were not at their doors to meet them. "Where are our teachers?" shouted all the Northside students. "We will find them and get them back to work," answered the responsible Grade 1s. The Grade 1s found Mrs. Tucci in her classroom crying under her desk. "Are you okay?" asked the Grade 1s. "There are chocolate wrappers everywhere and I cannot read stories to my precious preps in this mess," answered Mrs. Tucci. "Can we suggest that you get a big block of chocolate and bring just one little piece in a container to school every day for a treat? Then you won't have any rubbish at school," said Adam and Kishi. Mrs. Tucci stood up, wiped away her tears and said, "Thank you, Grade 1s. The Grade 1s found Miss G in her classroom crying under her desk. "Are you okay?" asked the Grade 1s. "I had swimming training this morning and accidentally drank some of the pool water. It was filled with rubbish from all the lunch boxes," answered Miss G. "May I suggest that you bring rubbish-free lunch to school? You could use containers from home and wash them to use over and over," said Ezekiel and Noah. As Miss G stood up, wiped away her tears, she said, "Thank you, Grade 1s. The Grade 1s found Mr. Longley in his classroom crying under his desk. "Are you okay?" asked the Grade 1s. "I've been eating lots and lots of chips and I forgot to drink any water," sobbed Mr. Longley. "Mr. Longley, you shouldn't eat junk food all the time. You need to eat healthy snacks and drink lots of water. Chips are very oily and salty. Just a handful is enough as a treat," said Karim and Gideon. Mr. Longley stood up, wiped away his tears and said, "Thank you, Grade 1s. The Grade 1s found Mrs. Fieldsey in her classroom crying under her desk. "Are you okay?" asked the Grade 1s. "Our fish tank is filled with wrappers and the fish don't have space to swim," sobbed Mrs. Fieldsey. "The wrappers are from lunch boxes filled with junk food. We need to bring rubbish-free lunch to school so the fish have a clean environment in the tank and in the creek too," said Evan and Rena. Mrs. Fieldsey stood up, wiped away her tears and said, "Thank you, Grade 1s. The Grade 1s found Mr. Gorfine in his classroom crying under his desk. "Are you okay?" asked the Grade 1s. "There is rubbish all over the chessboard and I can't play chess. My head feels sore and it's hard for me to think," sobbed Mr. Gorfine. "Mr. Gorfine, you need to eat healthy snacks from a rubbish-free lunchbox. Then you will have no rubbish and you will have a healthy and clever mind for chess," said Thomason and Stephen. Mr. Gorfine stood up, wiped away his tears and said, "Thank you, Grade 1s. The Grade 1s found Mr. Harry and Miss Rouse in their classroom, crying under their desk. "Are you okay?" asked the Grade 1s. "I feel so sick from the lollies I've been eating that I've forgotten how to speak Mandarin," sobbed Mr. Harry. "Mr. Harry, may I suggest that you eat a banana or even a mandarin? That will help you be healthy and think clearly," said William and Neva. Mr. Harry and Miss Rouse stood up, wiped away their tears and said, "Share, Grade 1s. The Grade 1s found Mr. Devine and Mrs. Simic in their classroom crying under their desk. "Are you okay?" asked the Grade 1s. "I've been drinking lots of Milo drinks, strawberry milks and banana Big M's. I tried to sing the Seussical songs, but it just doesn't sound right. Listen, Gula!" sang Mr. Devine. "Mr. Devine, may I suggest that you drink plenty of water from a reusable drink bottle instead of sweet drinks? It will help you stay healthy and give you a clear throat to sing beautifully," said Abby and Ken. Mr. Devine and Mrs. Simic stood up, wiped away their tears and sung, "Thank you, Grade 1s. The Grade 1s found Miss Vaughan and Miss Coggy in their classroom crying under their desk. "Are you okay?" asked the Grade 1s. "We love the special seats in our classroom, but there are so many chip wrappers that we cannot find the gym balls," sobbed Miss Vaughan. "May I suggest that you and your students have a handful of chips from a big packet of in a small reusable container as a treat each day? That way you'll create less wrapper rubbish," said Reese and Ivy. Miss Vaughan and Miss Cogger stood up, wiped away their tears and said, "Thank you, Grade 1s. The Grade 1s found Mrs. Eng in her classroom crying under her desk. "Are you okay?" asked the Grade 1s. "I've eaten all the lollies from my secret lolly jar because I didn't feel like eating my pear. Now my head hurts and my belly aches," cried Mrs. Eng. "I think you are having a sugar rush because you had too many sweets. You need to eat your brain food before you have any treats," said Ariel, Jermaine and Nathan. Mrs. Eng stood up, wiped away her tears and said, "Thank you, Grade 1s. The Grade 1s found Mr. Simmons in his classroom crying under his desk. "Are you okay?" asked the Grade 1s. "I've been eating fairy bread for lunch every day and haven't eaten a vegetable for 2 weeks. At cross-country training I couldn't run properly and my legs felt wobbly," cried Mr. Simmons. May I suggest that you have fairy bread as a sometimes food instead of an all-the-time food? You need to have 5 serves of vegetables every day, said Caleb, Charlize and Brian. Mr. Simmons stood up, wiped away his tears and said, I need to eat a carrot right now. You know I love to run. Thank you, Grade 1s. The Grade 1s found Mrs. Tan under her desk in her office crying. Are you okay? Asked the Grade 1s. Yesterday, I tried to join in praise and worship with Mrs. Bland. We were singing, Thank you, Lord, for saving my soul, and my arms just couldn't move properly to do my worship dancing, cried Mrs. Tan. Have you been eating a healthy diet, Mrs. Tan? Do you know that you need to have 5 handfuls of vegetables every day? Said Timothy, Kenneth and Kira. Mrs. Tan stood up, wiped away her tears and said, Oh, I'd totally forgotten. If I have my vegetables, I'll be able to sing, Thank you, Lord, for saving my soul. With the teachers all learning how to improve their health and make less waste with rubbish-free lunches, the classes could all begin again. In the next few weeks, with each day, the teachers' health improved and there was less and less rubbish.